Yo guys, welcome to the max roll leveling guide for the new hero in Torchlight Frozen Canvas SS6 Sing with the Tide Selena. She's a new hero and she operates in two different forms. You can be in bard form or loud song, each of these offering different benefits to your skills. In bard form, you'll be able to automatically channel skills as you move. That goes for any spell-based channel skill. And if you don't want to use a channeled skill, you can instead channel your bard song, which when reaching the max number of stacks will fire out a bubble. When this bubble hits a target, it will use whatever your main skill is at that target. So there are two different ways you can go about building a Selena. You can use a channel skill like Howling Gale, Thundercloud, Scorching Beam, Ice Beam, all of which will get those additional benefits from having plus maximum charges, and they'll be cast whilst you're moving. Something that is only possible when playing Selena. Alternatively, you can go the min channel route. When reaching 3 additional minimum channeled stacks, your bard song will fire every 0.2 seconds, firing out a wave of bubbles, dealing massive damage and triggering your main skill. These can be spell burst, and they benefit from any of the additional effects granted by the skill or the new support gems that have been added this season. We're going to be seeing a lot of Ring of Ice with the additional chance to proc based on your frostbite chance. This could be a great way to build Selena if you want to go the bubble route. In this guide, we're going to focus on the channeled skill route, as for leveling, it is undoubtedly the best and fastest way to level Selena. Howling Gale is a skill that was designed to be used whilst stationary, so being able to move with it takes it up to a new level. You'll be able to just immediately frigid transmission through zones by freezing enemies, and it will auto-target and destroy all the enemies around you. This gets even stronger when you reach level 34 and can equip your Ice Imbue. This will give you then an explode that will kill packs of enemies. It does lack a bit more on the single target when compared to other channeled skills like Scorching Beam or Ice Beam. During leveling and the early stages of the Nether Realm, this won't be anything to worry about. As for your hero traits themselves and where you're going to be getting most of your damage outside of these initial effects, it all scales with your Tide. Now, Tide's inherent effect is that it applies 15% additional damage to enemies for 4 seconds. As I said, this can stack up to 4 times, and your further traits add even more additional damage bonuses to the Tide. Wave Aria itself grants up to 22% additional damage against enemies in the Tide, and then when reaching level 60 and selecting Idol of the Tide, your Tide will grant another stacking buff of additional damage to enemies. Going from 1 to 2.2% additional damage while in the Tide, this stacks up to 15 times, so you can see another massive amount of additional damage. All of these separate multipliers, all of them scaling with your Tide effect. Now, where can we get Tide effect? Well, the last node is exactly where we're going to get it. Murmurs of the Distant Tide. In the bard state, you will get reduced duration on your Tide, so instead of 4 seconds, it will come down to 2, but you'll get additional Tide effect going from 60 all the way up to 100 as you level up those hero memories. So 100% additional effects of all those additional damage multipliers I've already mentioned mean a lot of damage. So this hero has a lot of damage baked into a kit. She has a very smooth playstyle, being able to just move. You're just an auto bomber by default, and you get access to movement with skills that typically do not. So this makes Selena, in our opinion, an S tier character going into the Frozen Canvas season. Now, she is only available with the Battle Pass. Every other character will be available for free. Selena only if you purchase the Battle Pass, which you can do so before entering the Frozen Canvas from the character select screen. She'll be available at level 1, so you'll immediately be able to log in. You'll start with Ring of Ice. You're going to use that all the way up to level 25 when you unlock Howling Gale, at which point you can put your feet up and press your whichever key your mobility skill is on with Frigid Transmission to just blast your way through the zones all the way to the Nether Realm. Now, with the change of progression, Time Mark 7 is definitely going to be something you spend a little bit more time in. Maybe not if you're playing Selena, she just seemed to be quite powerful, but you're going to have to farm out some gear, and there are affixes that you're going to want to look for on that gear. Starting off, we have things like Intelligence. Main stat scales your skills, giving 0.5% additional damage per main stat. So that with Intelligence being our main stat here, we want as much Intelligence as we can. This will also grant us with Energy Shield. Int is a very good way to scale your damage. For flat damage early on, you're going to need to look for cold damage added to spells. That's going to be the best way to add flat damage to your character. And then percent damage comes from sources like percent elemental damage, percent physical damage, because all of your physical damage is converted to cold with our talent point selections. Outside of that, things like cast speed work great for Howling Gale, as the attack frequency of the skill does directly scale with your cast speed. And with it being a channeled skill, you're able to use support gems that not all skills have access to. Things like Guard being able to grant you a very good uptime on barrier is going to make you feel nice and safe in those T7 maps as you move on through to fight the Traveler. For talent selections, it's a no-brainer that we start in the Goddess of Knowledge. This has so many premium nodes for a spellcaster, and you start out by getting damage. Moving on, we get attack and cast speed, and very, very important, move speed in the early stages of the campaign, as well as some skill cost reduction, which is going to mean we can just spam till our heart's content. Then we're going to move on and grab things like focus blessings, spell skill levels, and that very important converts 100% of physical damage to cold damage. For major talents, you're going to use Spell Burst whilst you're still on Ring of Ice, swapping over to Chilly once you swap to Howling Gale, as these focus blessings granting 5% additional damage essentially makes us 25% additional damage by having 5 focus blessings. It will also make sense later on when we move into the Elementalist tree why we took that node. For the next major talent, Insight grants 30% additional spell damage at a slight increased skill cost. We have some minor skill cost. This isn't going to stop us casting anytime soon. Next, we move into Elementalist, which is the channeled focus tree. We are a channeled skill, so there are some great nodes in here, and right at the end we have things like max channeled stacks, as well as a legendary medium talent that grants us 8% chance to gain tenacity blessings and agility blessings when receiving a focus blessing. Now, given how fast our skill hits and our 100% chance to receive a focus blessing on hit, this is going to get us to max stacks of blessings very quickly, providing all those offensive and defensive benefits of having blessings. For the first major talent, Focus grants 2 additional maximum channeled stacks. This directly scales our skill as Howling Gale gains an additional 20% additional damage per max channeled stack, as well as granting another 5% additional damage for every max channeled stack from the talent itself. So we definitely want to spec into as many max channeled stacks as possible on this build. For the second one, we go with Penetrating for 4% additional elemental damage per stack of Focus Blessing. There are some other options here. Peculiar Vibe is going to be better early on, as that 25% additional would mean you would need 7 Focus Blessings to beat. So you can definitely go with Peculiar Vibe early, and then once you start building up some more Focus Blessings, you can swap over to Penetrating for more damage. Finally, we have the Warlock tree. You can go a multitude of different trees here, but I found Warlock to be the best all-rounder tree for damage, mobility, and quality of life for the character, as you get access to things like cooldown reduction, skill charges, which means you can spam your blink even more. You're going to have more access to your curses, your empower skills, and you get those all-important all skill levels, which applies to your auras, your support skills, and those important active skills. The first major talent is Indifference, newly changed this season. That's going to give us another +2 to all skills. And the second major talent, starting off, we're going to use Off the Beaten Track. Later on, when you get some base ailment and can fit in some base wilt, some base ignite, and a little bit of lightning damage, you're going to want to swap to Dirty Tricks, as it is a much bigger damage multiplier than Off the Beaten Track. For slates, what you're going to want to look out for are additional skill levels, being all skills, physical skills. Just make sure you don't get the physical skill level that prevents you from converting your damage, because that will kill your build. Focus Blessings, a great option. You can also get additional max channeled stacks, intelligence, sealed mana, crit damage, in plenty to choose from on slates. And I'd say for most people, the one thing that kind of prevents them from moving up if they're stuck in Time Mark 7 or early Time Mark 8 is get your slates right, because this is a lot of damage and you can pick and choose exactly which mod you want and which ones are going to scale your build. So definitely put a bit of focus on your slates early on. If you've got your gear sorted, slates are where you need to look. So that's how we're going to be starting out on League Start. You can then think about going into a beam build. Howling Gale is great early on, but how it scales into the end game is rather unknown. There are a couple of magnificent supports you could look at, but that much is unknown to us so far. So look at playing Howling Gale, at least during the campaign, up to the Time Mark 8. And then if you really want to push your build to the limit and get that additional damage, you could look into something like Scorching Beam or Ice Beam. I hope you enjoyed this video and you're excited for the new Torchlight League. It's been a massive overhaul to everything. We've been hard at work testing and writing the new leveling guides for all the characters, so you can hop on by maxroll if Selena isn't your cup of tea. If you've watched this video and you think that's not for you, then look at all the other guides as well. We've got a tier list too if you want to see how they stack up against one another, at least initially. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.